Senior advisor Jared Kushner is making his way through the Mideast this week. He's promoting economic portions of his Israeli-Palestinian peace plan during his five-nation tour. Now, the Trump administration has called the framework the deal of the century, but few details have been released. For more on this now, I want to bring in Norman Roule. He's a former senior U.S. intelligence official, and he's with me now from Washington. So let us talk about what's been going on with Jared Kushner. What's the overall purpose of Jared Kushner visiting these Gulf nations right now?
Well, good morning. For approximately 2 years, Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt have conducted a series of informal consultations with regional partners as to what a peace deal would look like. Throughout these discussions, it's been consistent that there needs to be a robust economic package for Gaza and the West Bank. In order to fund that package, you're going to need money from the Gulf states, in particular Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Qatar. This trip is important because it's going to line up that initial financial package. Now, the Gulf states are going to want to know what exactly they're funding, what exactly this brings to the Palestinians, and what significant concessions the Palestinians are going to need to make to Israel.
So listen, you know, when it was announced that Jared Kushner would be involved in this, would be spearheading finding a resolution when it comes to this sort of decades-old conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, I think a lot of people were scratching their heads. The president talked about his relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, that Benjamin Netanyahu has known him since he was a little boy. But many people wondered, how does that qualify him for this job? It's been a little bit of time now. Does it look like he is qualified for this job? Is he a reliable negotiator?
Well, certainly after 2 years of having significant discussions with all the partners across the board, to include Europeans as well as American Middle East experts, it's clear that Jared Kushner and Jason Greenblatt know this issue as well as anyone could in that position. Obviously, he has the support of the president, and he has a close relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and that's important for any deal. However, we're at the point where, in order to achieve a deal, it is clear that there will be significant concessions from the Palestinians as well as the Israelis, and the Palestinians are unwilling to make these concessions, but they know they're pushing back against someone who has the support of President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Hanging over all of this is Washington's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Is that going to be a sticking point? Does that make this almost a non-starter?
Well, it's a complicating factor, and again, there are many who would have said that perhaps we should have asked for Israeli concessions before making this move. But looking back on the decision, a couple of points are important. First, it's already done. It's not going to be undone, and everyone recognizes this. Second, there was very little response from the Arab street on this issue. And there were many who would have predicted that such a deal would have provoked unrest, protest, and perhaps even violence. And that's been noted. This said, I think what we're really looking at is the perception, particularly in the Gulf, that in order to move forward, they've got to see concessions from Israel. Now, the Palestinian Prime Minister Abu Mazen, Mahmoud Abbas, has already let it be known that he is against this plan. He is against any further concessions. In part, he is about 83. He's at the end of his career, and I don't think he wants to be remembered for a legacy that included giving up more of Jerusalem or making significant concessions to Israel. So when you ask if the Jerusalem decision was important, I think it's most important in terms of how the Palestinians see this as an element of their way forward.
And so, you mentioned concessions on both sides. Have the Israelis indicated in any way that they're willing to offer up some type of concessions?
Well, again, I'm not privy to those conversations, but my understanding is that the Israelis recognize that there will need to be some territorial concessions, as well as some territorial gains. There's a lot of give and take here. I think when you're looking at the Israeli issue right now, you need to put this into perspective of their local politics. Israel is going through an election. In order to achieve victory, Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to have the strong support of the Israeli right. For that reason, I don't see this plan rolling out now until that election is completed and we can see where that government stands.
So I want to ask you about something just a little bit different. Jared Kushner is going to be visiting Saudi Arabia on this trip. There have been concerns about his relationship with the Saudis, particularly the Crown Prince. Some have felt that because his relationship is so tight with the Crown Prince, that the Crown Prince maybe perhaps felt emboldened, and as a result, we get the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Why is this trip significant when it comes to Kushner pushing his peace plan?
Well, thank you. It's a great question. Well, to begin, I want to state my personal view that the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, unjustified, grotesque, and terrible, inexcusable, merits the strongest possible punishment for those involved. And the Saudis have stated that they are likely going to seek the death penalty for at least 5 people, have removed the Crown Prince's 2 senior-most advisors, and will seek long prison terms for the rest of the individuals. I don't know if the relationship between the White House and the Crown Prince encouraged the Crown Prince to support at least a rendition, if not the actual murder. And there's a lot of talk about this, but frankly, it's from people who are generally against the Trump administration. My understanding is that the relationship between Jared Kushner and the Saudis is almost exclusively focused on Palestinian issues, and that non-Palestinian issues with the Saudis are handled by Secretary Pompeo.
Okay, very interesting. Norman Roule, thank you.